And it happens on both sides.
We're going to step in again. Melissa, do you want to tag team this? I'm going to go ahead. We've got the unclassified memo now. And this is to majority members of the House Intel. So Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses at the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation is the subject matter of the memo. The purpose. This memorandum provides members an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation and their use of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, during the 2016 presidential election. You want to go ahead and jump to the investigation?
I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to Catherine Herridge. Is that right? That's what they just told me. Do we want to bring Catherine back in, or you want us to do more of this?
Good.
There we go.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, so I'm through the first couple of pages of the memo, and what they indicate is that the focus is on the FISA application for Carter Page. Carter Page was a one-time foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. And it states that then FBI Director James Comey signed 3 FISA applications, on behalf of the FBI, as well as Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who was removed earlier this week. Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, she's the one who sort of famously sounded the alarm about Mike Flynn. And she felt there was a basis for him to be blackmailed by the Russians, as well as then acting Deputy Attorney General Dana Buente and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. The key finding here, it says, our findings indicate that as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. And I'm going to continue here. Neither the initial application in October 2016, so this is the surveillance application, nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party or campaign in funding the efforts of the British spy Christopher Steele, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier was then known to senior FBI and Justice Department officials. So the memo was stating that when they went to get these surveillance warrants from the FISA court, they said, this is information we have from the dossier, but they didn't give the National Security Court full visibility on who was financing the dossier, who was sort of the driving force behind this opposition research. And the memo states that this was known to the FBI and Justice Department, but it was still not provided. That's a significant headline right there. And just one other, if I could. It states that the Carter Page FISA application, so a surveillance application, extensively cited a September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff. And it focused on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. Okay. I want to check the British court records, but Yahoo News was definitely one of the 5 or 6 American media outlets that were briefed by Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson about the dossier. So you potentially have a situation here where the Michael Isikoff article is used to provide credibility for the reliability of the dossier, when in fact it was the people behind the dossier who briefed Isikoff, who wrote a story that then came back to the FISA court. That's called circular reporting. That is not called credible sourcing.
Wow.
Hey, can I ask Catherine something? Catherine, so I'm looking through these documents, and what we see down around number 2, they're talking about Steele, like you said, admitting that he gave information to Yahoo News and that his numerous encounters with media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality. So he had become at that point less than a reliable source to the FBI. He was at that point terminated, but then he began still going back and meeting with Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr.
Bruce Orr, that's correct.
Senior official of the DOJ. And then that's when in September 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then Trump candidate when Steele said he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about not being president. So they knew his motivation. He had already been fired for doing things he wasn't allowed to do. But at that point, he tunneled back to Bruce Orr and passed more information in. And all this was known. And the information was used to obtain FISA warrants anyway. That's the gist of this section of it.
Yeah,
which
and it brings up the one question that Catherine, I don't know that this would be able to answer, and that is why in the world would they do that?
Pardon me, Harris, just repeat that.
Why? Why would they lean on this if this were coming from someone that they had already determined needed to be relieved of his duties?
That's not a question I can answer.
That's not something that we can answer. That's what I'm saying. Does the memo approach it?
There's another important headline here. It states in Section 4, according to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division. Counterintelligence Division is the division that's in charge of rooting out spies and espionage. Assistant Director Bill Priestap, this is someone who was part of Comey's inner circle. He said corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of the initial Page FISA application. So what that's saying there is that it was not a fully vetted document at the time it was used to get a surveillance warrant on an American citizen.
Howard?
2 points that jump out at me, Harris, as we go through the memo all together on live television. As Steele was having these media,
that's how it goes sometimes.
These media contacts with Yahoo and others, this memo says flatly, Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about those contacts. And then if you jump ahead, January 2017, President-elect Trump, he hasn't taken office yet, James Comey, briefed him on this Steele dossier, even though it was salacious and unverified. So more missing pieces of how this got started and how it got brought.
And we also know that the meeting that President Trump had to be briefed on this unverified dossier that was essentially a Democrat propaganda piece or opposition research was also then leaked to the media as well. That meeting was leaked to the media.
Right.
So why was it leaked to the media, and why was he ever briefed on this in the first place if it was unverified and they didn't know if any of the information was true?
I have lots of questions about just Yahoo News and these organizations. Catherine, you termed it this way, and I took notes on what you said earlier.
I like it when you take notes. I appreciate that.
Wait, you're all handling your business like a boss. Everybody's taking notes on you.
I can.
So what you said earlier was that it would appear, from what you had seen, and now we all can see, Fusion GPS, the firm that put together that anti-Trump dossier through this British spy, Christopher Steele, was putting forth some sort of active campaign to brief media outlets. Do you think the media outlets, and this is really important, knew that they were part of a narrative or campaign? Were they just getting the information? And again, I don't know if we can get that from here, but Yahoo News is mentioned a couple of times, and I'm just wondering, did they know that they were part of this circular reporting?
Well, we'll have to seek out comment from Michael Isikoff and Yahoo News
about
what they knew at that time. Circular reporting maybe sounds like a complicated term. Maybe I can just break it down a little bit more for people. When you're acting as a journalist and you get information, you have to understand the quality of the source. And you want to understand whether this is an independent source or whether information you're getting from a second source is connected, okay? So in its simplest terms here, what you have is information about the dossier appeared to be coming from not only Steele, but also American media reports. So it looked like two separate sources, but in fact, it was really the same source.
Right.
Because the source was Fusion GPS.
We should emphasize, and you know this, that a number of news organizations who had access to this dossier or the contents didn't report them. CNN reported on the existence of the dossier, didn't publish it. It was only BuzzFeed that actually put it out there while acknowledging,
that's a great point,
not knowing whether it was true or not. But you know, I do want to remind people that this is a memo prepared by the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Is it possible that the FBI or the Democrats will say, well, the Steele dossier, now that we know about his motivations and his deceptions, was just one of the elements used to rely in that national security court in order to get those.
Well, wait, I have an answer to that. If you look down at the bottom of point 4, it says Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISA court without the Steele dossier information.
But does that mean that they hadn't? Because I had always understood it that the Steele dossier played a role in this, but that they had also gotten additional sourcing to corroborate elements of the Steele dossier.
He testified before the committee.
Part that Catherine has pointed out from this memo was that sort of sourcing, if you will, that circular sourcing, all went back to the same place. I mean, it wasn't actually 2 or 3. Go ahead, Catherine.
Let me just read from this section here.